Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. Happy Sunday, and thank you for joining us today for our discussion on the wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam. I know being a Sunday, many things come to our mind, a lot of different things that need to get done before the week starts. And so I appreciate you being here on the call today and catching up and being with us and giving us your association as well, discussing these wonderful topics that Srimad Bhagavatam has to offer. So thank you once again. Hare Krishna. It's kind of intimidating when you have to share your personal realizations on a topic such which is so elevated as the Srimad Bhagavatam. While the appreciation is great, the personal realizations tend to flutter like a butterfly in the stomach and everywhere else in your body, especially in your head when you have to, say a few words, that have to come out with all the sincerity and more so with all the humility that comes with, um, being able to speak even a few words from a personal perspective in terms of our interactions with the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially to, such an elevated audience. And especially when we're talking about the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's not about talking about a cricket match or, a basketball game or something that's happening out there, but something that is so elevated as the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we are so fortunate in so many ways. So please bear with me as I get through this. I'm super nervous, of course, but I know with your help and with my spiritual master's blessings that I seek, hopefully I'll be able to spend the next few minutes, talking a little in terms of my personal realizations, and hopefully, it would be meaningful. So here we go. When I look back and I reflect on how times were back in the day, long, 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 long time ago. They're talking about not just a few years ago, but hundreds and thousands of years ago. Even when the Srimad Bhagavatam was being compiled by Srila Vyasadeva, it was done under such austere circumstances. It was done in such a period of time when there was no technology per se, right? Everything was handwritten, and over the ages, what was handwritten was difficult to even find intact. And what was found and was, to be able to replicate that so that it could be available to the masses was practically impossible. We didn't have even Xerox copy machines. We didn't have any of those technologies back then. And everything had to be handwritten, hand copied, written on leaves. And then for all that was done, all the effort that was put in, we had all of these invaders and foreigners come into the country and, completely wipe out with, all of the ideologies that came in with these, foreigners that came into the country from different parts of the world. So there were so many invading cultures that completely, tried to eliminate and wipe out what we had. Even when you look at it, Sanatan Dharma that was established, just the oldest. I mean, that was the very, very first origin of anything to do with spirituality, leave alone with religion. And only hundreds and thousands of years later came all the other religions and, variants of interpretations of these, of what we know as the Sanatan Dharma, the eternal religion. And along with that came their own interpretations, what religion is, who God is, and then it became your God versus my God, and my ideology versus your ideology. And then that there were battles fought, even to this day for that matter, in terms of, the different ideologies, when there is only one God, which we know, and which the Srimad Bhagavatam very clearly emphasizes, states without any ambiguity. But even then, there is the ground reality which, has created this time immemorial. Lives have been lost, battles have been fought and won and lost, and lands have been, been completely filled with bloodshed over this topic. But where I'm going with this is that these ancient scriptures were very, very difficult to find, very hard to find. They were so rare. They were like rare jewels, and they were not available to everybody. It was only, the fortunate few that had access to these wonderful, rare scriptures. It was very, very rare. And then you fast forward, and then you see today where we are. We have so many different channels by which we can access, these literatures, these scriptures. So many books have been written. So many books have been written by different ideologies. So you have, even within a given ideology, you have so many different authors writing their own commentaries. You have different languages for each of these. You have different editions for each of these books. And not just that, each of these books are also not only available in the physical form, now you can get them online. You can get them even on your phone, your laptop, your tablet, and it doesn't matter where you are. You could be sitting in the comfort of your home here in Chicago, or you could be anywhere in the world. You could be, for that matter, sitting on the tip of an iceberg in the Antarctica. As long as there's an internet connection, you have access. You have access. So the whole paradigm has shifted from, making it so, being so difficult to be able to find, having access to any of the rare scriptures, ancient scriptures, to where we are today, where everything is available everywhere. Yet, the fundamental problem here, yet, we're all fighting for time. Now, we have the access, we have the availability, but yet we don't have the time. Time is so precious. As I had mentioned in my last lecture that we had, the discussion that we had a month ago, we were talking about how people run from one side to the other. They're running from the house to work and from work back to the house. It's just a mad rat race, right? Everybody is running. We're running like as if the sky is falling on our heads for everything and anything. There's so many priorities that we have to deal with. There's competing priorities, each one priority competing with the other priority. There is the family on the one side, there is the work, the job, there is the house, there is, the school, there is, the cat, there is the dog, there is the car, there is this, there is that. I mean, there are so many competing priorities. And by the way, did I mention there is the spouse as well? Usually there's a long honeydew list in terms of I want to get this done, this done, this done, and you better get this done in the next hour or so. So yeah, there are a lot of competing priorities, and then there are bills to be paid. There's so much. And on top of all of this, there is the external energy that is providing, not providing, but actually infusing all of these competing priorities and distractions by the second. No kidding, right? Take an example. You want to get a refrigerator, you go to the Best Buy. You go to Best Buy, and it's not like one refrigerator that you're going there to buy. You find a whole lineup of refrigerators. There's this refrigerator with this feature and that refrigerator at that price. There is this size, that capacity. I mean, there are so many different bells and whistles that each of these come with so many different options. They're all competing in your head. And you're going into a spin, trying to figure out, do I need this? Do I really need that? I ended up getting a refrigerator of all after all that just recently, which has a smart hub on it. What does that mean? It tells me, what the weather is like. It tells me what I have in the refrigerator. It tells me what I need to order from Jewel-Osco or any of the grocery stores, and it'll do that for me. It tells me what meals I need to cook for the day. It gives me a menu. It gives me the recipes to go with that, all on a massive display. Do I really, really need all of that? No, I don't. But see, that's how Maya is constantly getting our mind share, trying to figure out, trying to get us into thinking that I do need that. I do need to spend the money for that. I will find a way to justify to get that, whatever it is. It could be the refrigerator, it could be anything else. So all of this is happening in our heads, competing priorities, and all this time that's being taken away from us. And then let's say you're sitting, in your family room, in your living room, you're looking out the window. It's a beautiful day outside. It's the weekend. You're relaxing. Finally, after getting some of these things taken care of and the priorities have been addressed, and it starts to rain. It's looking very, very beautiful out there. You're looking at all of your backyard. You're looking at the flowers. They're looking so pretty. The grass is looking so vibrant and green. The raindrops are falling on your roses, and your roses are looking even more brilliant, even more prettier as you see. And all this is happening, and you're trying to get in the moment. And then all of a sudden, you hear a loud crash. What happens? You don't know. Something's gone wrong, but you don't know. It's outside. You're thinking, oh my God, maybe it is something, but hey, I was enjoying the scenery outside. It's such a beautiful picture. Let me be. And then you get the phone rings, and then it's your neighbor. And she's saying, hey, did you know lightning hit one of your trees and, a branch has come down crashing. You better take a look. Now all of a sudden you drop everything. You're sipping that warm cup of herbal tea, you drop it there, and you're running out as you are into the front yard. You get out there, you open the doors, it's pouring. You get completely drenched. You're running through the wet grass, your feet are completely muddied. And then you get to the tree that's been standing there for the last 30 years. That beautiful tree now is looking like a mess. There's this long 30-foot branch, which is a massive branch, 30 feet. It's hanging by a thread. It's fallen, and it's fallen on those lovely, well-nurtured, landscape that you have. All the flowers are crushed under it. It's a complete mess. There's leaves and foliage everywhere. It's blowing. The wind is blowing. I mean, it's a complete mess. And you're thinking, oh my God, what happened to that pretty picture that I was looking out the window just a few minutes ago? Here I am in my own house in the front yard now with in a complete mess. Now I have to deal with this. Lucky that the branch didn't fall on the house and cause even more damage. And I'm giving you a true example. This happened to me just a few weeks ago. So I'm saying, life can change in a moment on a dime, just like that. Something that is so pretty can become something that's so nasty in just a moment. It doesn't take time. So when we don't have this time, and let's say even after getting through all of these things, we say, I have to read the Bhagavatam, I have to read the Bhagavad Gita, I have to, catch up on some lecture. We're doing it with the intent that we actually want to do it, but then with all of these competing priorities, the brain is so spread thin that we're not actually getting absorbed in what we're reading or we're hearing, whether it's a lecture or, it's an audio tape. So that absorption is basically taking us away. Yes, we're going through the mechanics of actually opening the book. They're opening the Bhagavatam, for instance. It's right in front of us. We're reading, a page or two. We're remarking it, even, even go to that extent. But we're not letting that message that actually should be sitting in our heads and getting into our hearts. We're not letting that happen, right? Somewhere along the lines, there's a disconnect because there's so many things happening around you that we really don't get into the zone, so to speak. So that leaves us kind of dry. And then we wonder, I've been reading the Bhagavatam for so many years. I've been reading and hearing for so many years. How come I'm not seeing the transformation? How come I'm not seeing the transformation? Why is it? But that's also because we are not investing in it to be able to actually grasp that true essence which is available. Having, both Ruchira and I have been doing a lot of AI related work for the last 30 years. And one of the things that we've been learning is that everybody's talking about artificial intelligence. It is artificial, true, but the word intelligence that comes into play, right? So I'm just trying to give you a little context. We all started with a lot of data in the IT world, manipulating data. There's incoming data, there's outgoing data, there's data transformation. So we make and massage the data to be able to give us something, right? Whether it's a spreadsheet or it's a Word document, whatever it is. But then we moved from there and we said, okay, let's put all of this data together. Let's put it in context. Now we have information, right? So when we put data in context, we have information. And that's been happening over a while. We went through the information age, right? And back in the 90s and early 2000s. So we had information. Now the internet came in. Now we could actually access data from there and data from there and data from there. And now we can put it together. Now all of a sudden we have information. Oh, I know when my flight is taking off, or the weather is 80 degrees outside, things like that, where you're getting information. Then it didn't stop there. And it said, okay, let's put all of this information together. Let's put it in context now. Now, all of a sudden, I have information in context, which takes us to the next level, which is knowledge, right? So when you have knowledge now systems are, you can log into your laptop now and you can actually gain some knowledge. It'll tell you, hey, if it's raining, you probably want to take your umbrella. It's going to be raining in the afternoon at 3 p.m. and the chances of rain are 62%, and therefore your likelihood is high. Therefore, you should be taking your umbrella with you and so on. So that's giving you some knowledge, right? That you can act upon. So it's giving you some knowledge. So that's knowledge, which is basically information that's put in context, everything in context. Now we're getting to the stage, we're on the cusp of where artificial intelligence is coming in and saying, okay, so we have some knowledge. Now let's put knowledge in context. What does that give us? Wisdom, right? Wisdom. So the highest part of this hierarchy is wisdom. that Srimad Bhagavatam is giving us. It's already putting things in context for us. It's giving us the wisdom. We don't even have to think. We don't need expensive computers. We don't need expensive AI chips. All of this is already being provided to us through the Srimad Bhagavatam. That context, that wisdom that we lack today, in most cases we lack. We're not able to process all of this knowledge in a way that we can actually put it together in the right context. We may put it in context, but not in the right context to actually have that wisdom to be able to lead our life the way it should be. So we're running after these things that seem like happiness, that seem like something that's good for us, but we don't know. We're not doing a good job at it. It's pretty obvious, right? When we look at ourselves, when we look outside, there's so many things that are breaking down, there's so many quarrels, there's so many things that are going all over the place and not heading the right direction. Progress is really, really lacking in spite of all of the technology that we have, for instance. So, what can we do, right? So there was a letter that Maharaj Srila Prabhupada had written to one of his disciples in 1972, and I'll read that to you. He says, I'm requesting of my students to read my books very seriously every day without fail. In this way, if your mind becomes absorbed 1 or 2 hours daily in the transcendental subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and other books, then very easily you will make your advancement in Krishna consciousness. So this was Srila Prabhupada's words. This is, in a letter to his disciples back in 1972. So if you consider all of these realities and stop to think of what it would have been without the spiritual guidance through our spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada's books, it's not all that complicated. It's not complicated at all. It does not require any lengthy explanation. We would be lost, plain and simple. I mean, in very, very simple terms, we would be lost, right? Because there are so many books, there are so many editions, there are so many interpretations, there are so many commentaries, there are so many ideologies. It's just flooding the Amazons of the world or any bookstore of the world for that matter. And it's become so easily available that now you have an abundance, an overflow of information which our brains cannot handle. So so we absolutely need the guidance. We absolutely need the direction and a clear and simplified message, nothing complicated, right? Nothing flowery. We just want it as it is, and that's what Srila Prabhupada has given us. And he's made all this accessible at the expense of his own, you know, well-being, in the sense he's gone through severe sacrifices and austerities. When he could have been sitting in Vrindavan happily at the age that he was in, he didn't have to go through all of that and come to a foreign land, deal with foreign people, and, go through all of the things that he had to, the sacrifices that he had to make, while compiling the simplified interpretation of the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita and everything else, while maintaining the authenticity. That's the difficult part. Anybody can write. Someone who knows the English language, for instance, or any other language for that matter, they can write. But to be able to preserve the authenticity of what the intent is, and taking not only, the Srimad Bhagavatam in the way the verses were presented, but also being able to enrich it with references from all the other scriptures. It would take us, I don't know, eons of years to be able to even find those right references, bring them together, put them in the right context, and actually preserve that authenticity that Srila Prabhupada has provided. So he wasn't making things up. He wasn't fabricating. It wasn't what it wasn't his opinion. It was basically everything that he put down was references that corroborated and supported the verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we should, from our side, we should feel that intense gratitude for what we've been given. Srila Prabhupada served the Srimad Bhagavatam, the crested jewel, on a golden platter, on a golden platter, right? And this golden platter is not coming from this material world, mind you. Even the Mahamantra, everything that he's given us because he's brought that from the spiritual world. It's coming from the spiritual world. It's not coming from the material world. We need to realize that. Everything, every single word in the Srimad Bhagavatam is completely spiritual. It is not man-made. So we need to be cognizant of that and be intensely grateful for what he's given us. And what did Srila Prabhupada expect? It's not like that he expected some remuneration. He didn't expect anything for all the books that he's written, for the Srimad Bhagavatam that he's put together with so many sacrifices and austerities. He wasn't looking for a pat on the back. He wasn't looking for, a few Rolls Royces to be parked outside, in his name. He wasn't looking for the Nobel Prize, saying that, oh, I've written this huge, effort that I put into to accomplish this. No, he wasn't looking for any of that. He wasn't looking for any TV spotlights. He wasn't looking for any, kudos from dignitaries from around the world. Not even a few hours of sleep. That's the beauty, right? Srila Prabhupada was so genuinely trying to give us what he gave us at the expense of his own well-being. I mean, a few hours of sleep, just 2 to 3 hours of sleep every day for years together, to be able to put this together, to be able to, compile, the commentaries on the Srimad Bhagavatam, provide the translations. Now, all this in a foreign land. He had to deal with hippies. He had to deal with crazy people who, charged at him in the middle of the night with a knife in their hands and chased him down the street in the cold in the winter of New York. I mean, it's unimaginable when you think of these things, the sacrifices that were made. So it didn't just stop there. Then, his disciples have taken what he's provided in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the way of the books, and be able to take it through the corners of the world, to the remotest of the villages, and being able to expound and further simplify, his translations, his purports, to make it accessible to us in a way that we can digest it in this lifetime and in the time, place, and circumstance that we're in. And they've done this. The disciples have done this also by making those huge sacrifices. They've given up all of the material comforts of mostly being in the Western lifestyle. They've given all of that up. So all this to disseminate the priceless gift of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So my humble gratitude to Srila Prabhupada, to my spiritual master and all his disciples, each and every disciple of his, for their tireless and selfless effort in giving us, the Srimad Bhagavatam. In His Holiness Keshav Swami's Maharaj's words, we all need an awakening of the higher reality that Lord Krishna so mercifully gives us with what he calls a divine slap. A divine slap. Now, take Maharaj Parikshit, for instance. He was the emperor of the world. He had everything at his beck and call, right? He had palatial buildings, palaces. He had, across the world and across the entire globe, for that matter, not just in one place, one city. And yet, Lord Krishna arranged for him to be cursed and to die within 7 days. Within 7 days. So, what did he do? He didn't surround himself with, he had access to that, right? He could have surrounded himself with all the possible protections, one steel cage and, hundreds of thousands of, soldiers around him night and day. He could have done all of that just so that he could avoid the snake bird from coming and, biting him and he would die, right? So he could have done that. He could have protested. He could have done so many different things as the emperor of the world. But no, instead, he completely abdicated what he had. He completely left everything as is and went straight out with simple clothes, with a very clear mindset that I have only 7 days and I want to spend those 7 days learning about how I can achieve perfection in this life. And that was by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from, Sukadeva Goswami. And so glorious was the subject matter that the most exalted of the personalities, like Vyasadeva, who had himself compiled, right, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas, and the father of Sukadeva Goswami, he was there. And not just he, Narada Muni was there, Srila Vyasadeva, spiritual master. And Narada Muni is usually traveling from one planet to another, from one part of this universe to another universe to another universe. He has access, so he is the spiritual spaceman, so to speak. Then there was Lord Brahma, there was Lord Shiva, and all these exalted personalities, the exalted sages from around, they were all there, and they were there in person. No Zoom calls, no Microsoft Teams calls. No, they were all there in person for all 7 days. They were there with giving their ultimate and complete attention to the words coming from Sukadeva Goswami on the topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because they wanted to hear earnestly. So my divine slap, my divine slap came when I was 37 years old, when I was about, I was ready to retire at that age. And among the serious life-changing events, there was also the stock market that completely came crashing down like a deck of cards, leaving me in a hole that was so deep that life had no meaning anymore. It was one of the most difficult stages in my life. So the divine slap was definitely, the trigger point for me to get motivated and get more serious about life, about spiritual life, and to understand what the purpose really is in this life for me. So, in a conversation with his disciples, Srila Prabhupada, and I'll read that to you. So, Prabhupada is saying, when there is suffering given by Krishna, therefore, a devotee does not take seriously the suffering. Tattenukampam susamikshamano. That's a verse quoted from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 8. Tattenukampam, tattenukampam susamikshamano. A devotee thinks it is the favor of Krishna that he, being Krishna, has put me into suffering. They never see suffering as suffering. It is the favor of Krishna. That is devotee's vision. It is exactly like a son who knows his father well. If the father slaps, the son never protests. He knows that it is good for me. Similarly, a devotee never is disturbed when there is suffering by Krishna. We all have received one way or the other. And again, that's end of what Prabhupada said. So it's a great point. The son that knows the father well knows that the father's intent is right, and that slap was deserved. It may hurt, it may smart, it may hurt, be a little difficult to swallow initially. But then, with a little introspection, the son does realize that the father did the right thing. So he doesn't take that and hold that as a grudge against his father, right? Whereas in the material world, it's completely different. It's completely different. For a karmi, ego kicks in, and they do things differently. They do things differently. We've even heard of these most extreme cases where the sons have actually murdered their parents. That case has been going on for the last 30 to 40 years now. It's even now, as of yesterday as well, in the court of law, it's being debated. So there are some extreme cases like that, but that's in the karmi world. But for a devotee, it's completely, completely different. And when that suffering happens, the devotee realizes and recognizes that this is coming from Krishna. It could have been a lot worse, but this is coming from Krishna, therefore it is sanctioned. It is sanctioned. And Krishna means well. Krishna is our best friend. Krishna is our well-wisher. And the Srimad Bhagavatam clearly emphasizes, clearly demonstrates that through all the various pastimes that are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is why the Srimad Bhagavatam is the crested jewel. No claims, no fluff, no flowery words, just pure pure inspiration through the accounts of all of these exalted devotees in their interactions with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So as we read that and introspect, and that's where the time comes in, where we need to be absorbed. We're not just reading for the sake of reading. We're not just reading for the sake of understanding, but we're taking it even further. We're saying read not only to read and understand, but also to be able to reflect and introspect in our own lives to see how these lessons can be applied. How can we then enhance our relationship with the Supreme? We're not the exalted devotees as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but the lessons learned and the takeaways from those beautiful interactions, those simple but so effective interactions, can be applied to us in our own day-to-day lives. When we do our daily worship, when we are making some, bhoga and offering it and then having that as prasadam, in our day-to-day interactions with fellow devotees, in the association of the devotees, putting ourselves not in the center, but to the side, and keeping Krishna in the center. And Guru Maharaj was, His Holiness Prabhupada Maharaj was saying, even the other day, it is so, 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 so fundamental, so critical at the end of the day, at the end of everything. The bottom line is, no matter what we do, no matter how we interact, no matter how we think and speak and do things that we do on a day-to-day basis within the confines of our home or in our workplace or in the temple or outside, it has to be with one single underlying fundamental essential fact, which is to please Krishna. Putting Krishna in the center. That's how we can actually grow together as opposed to pulling apart. There's no point having a big temple and a beautiful temple if we all still try to hold on to our egos. There is no point, absolutely. There is no point in going to lecture after lecture after lecture There's no point in saying, or feeling that, okay, I've read this and I've read that, I've done this and done that. I've been spending hours and hours in service. If we do not have that consciousness that whatever we're doing, whatever we're saying, we're keeping Krishna in the center. We're doing this in a manner that is pleasing to Krishna. If Guru and Krishna are pleased, and if we can question ourselves with every single move we make to see, it's the acid test. Is this really pleasing for Krishna? Is this really pleasing Guru and Krishna? Would they be happy if they were right here, standing here next to me? Would they be pleased? We should ask ourselves every single moment. I mean, that is a lesson for me as well. I'm saying this, but I'm addressing it to myself as well. This is the consciousness that we all need to inculcate. It is with this seriousness that we need to inculcate because, as I was saying, priorities are constantly changing. Life is constantly moving. Things that were going really well suddenly are not going well. The grand example of my tree coming crashing down, spoiling that wonderful afternoon. What was looking like a beautiful picture turned out to become a very nasty picture in a matter of just a few moments. So, with all of the unpredictability that comes about with life, we don't have much time. We don't know when our lives are going to end. We don't want to be in a situation where, we're breathing our last few moments and we're thinking, oh my God, I should have apologized to this person. Oh, I should have said the right things, or I should have done the right things. That would actually be in a manner that pleased Krishna. So these are the things, these are the lessons that Srimad Bhagavatam repeatedly, over and over again, through example after example after example after example, page after page, text after text, is exemplifying the simple, simple, simple essence that we need to take away. It is not the details that we need to get into. This happened at this time, and that person said this, and this was the result, and this is how all of these things came about. All that is fine. The takeaway from all of that is, at the end of the day, is it bringing us closer to Krishna? And the Srimad Bhagavatam is emphasizing that. That's what we should keep in mind. That should be right in front of our faces in bold capitals, telling us this is how you build your relationship with Krishna. This is how you enhance your relationship with Krishna. This is how you please Guru and Krishna. And that's what's so beautiful about the Srimad Bhagavatam. It does it in so many different ways. And while there are several verses that, are of interest to me personally in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is this verse that resonated with me, since the day I first came across that years ago. And that's from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5, Text 30, where Prahlad Maharaj he's exposing, the futility of materialistic life driven by uncontrolled desires or senses. Okay, so that's what I mean, I'm sharing that screen with you so that we can read it together. Matirna Krishne Pratha Svatova Mito Padyate Padyayeta, sorry, मितो भी पद्येत ग्रह व्रतानाम अदांत गोबिर विशताम तमिश्रम पुनर्पुनश चर्विता charvananam. And for me, the operative word here is adanta gobir also. Adanta gobir. And again, the translation is because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life. Prahlad Maharaj replied, Because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations toward Krishna are never aroused, either by instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both, which is so true. I call it the merry-go-round. They jump on the merry-go-round and it's going round and round and round, and people are asking, oh, they're screaming, oh, this is exciting, oh, this is fun. They're actually getting dizzy. They're actually getting dizzy. They're getting nowhere. They're just going round and round and round in circles if you think about it. And at the end of it, they're feeling sick and nauseous and, they want to puke. But no, they want to keep going round and round and round. So what Prahlad Maharaj is saying is life after life after life after life. They don't get it. There are these people who are completely indulging in their uncontrolled senses. Adanta Gobir. Adanta Gobir. And they just don't get it. They just don't get it. They get nauseous. They vomit. I mean, in other words, in life, they go through this. They indulge in their senses. They face the karmic reactions. Things don't work out. They go through hellish conditions, even in this material world. And they're actually, it's a vicious downward, it's a downward cycle, right? Or downward spiral. So it's a vicious cycle that is taking you down, 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 and down with every single lifetime. But they never seem to get it. They don't want to take any direction or spiritual guidance. Instead, they want to go with the herd. The herd is saying, hey, jump on that merry-go-round, go round and round and round and round. Enjoy. Your life is too short. Enjoy. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is so beautiful that it's not just describing it in, a level of abstraction. It's not some, uh, vague theory, right? But instead, it is through the voices of a 5-year-old like Prahlad Maharaj. In that innocence, there is so much sincerity, so much commitment, so much love, and unconditional faith in the scripture, as he heard it from Lord Narada, for instance, that he's even at that age of 5, he's able to see the senselessness in indulging with these uncontrolled senses. Adanta Govir. So he's speaking to his demoniac father, Hiranyakashipu. That in itself is intimidating. That in itself is like, ooh, can I really do this? So many of us don't have the guts to even speak up. What to speak up in front of a father who's so demoniac, who's been putting Prahlad Maharaj through life-threatening situations. His own father throws him off the cliff, pops him in a pot of oil, hot oil, throws him into a pit of, most poisonous snakes, has elephants trying to come and crush him. I mean, which father would do that? But even after going through such life-threatening circumstances, Prahlad Maharaj is still able to speak up. He has the courage of conviction. That's what we need to build. And I'm telling myself here specifically, that courage of conviction is required, and that comes from being in the association of of devotees, and being able to imbibe the messages of the Srimad Bhagavatam with the heart, not with the mind, but with the heart, through proper hearing from your spiritual master, reading with a sense of commitment to actually be in the zone and absorb that, and being able to introspect, like I was saying earlier, reflect on how it can be applied, taking it seriously. Even if it is just one paragraph or one line or two lines, there could be, like, for instance, Adanta Gobir. That keeps coming back to me, the uncontrolled senses. How do we control our senses? Being in control of those senses in itself is a challenge. So even if I can take care of just that one thing, with the objective of having to play with the objective of being able to please Guru and Krishna, I would consider myself successful. Like I said, Maya is out there giving us all of these things, hitting us with this flashy object and that flashy object every single second of our lives. So even a 5-year-old empowered by devotion can become the supreme teacher of truth. Right? Prahlad Maharaj is able to exercise that courage of conviction to be able to even speak up to his demoniac father, and he's sitting right on his lap. This demoniac king and father could very easily, with this little 5-year-old boy sitting on his lap, he would just twist his neck, knowing that his life can be gone in just like a fraction of a second. Prahlad Maharaj is still able to turn around and speak to his father and say, "Hey, fool, understand, this is the reality." And the Srimad Bhagavatam is able to, bring to us and recount, that which Prahlad Maharaj was able to share so boldly with so much courage, you know. And that leaves us thinking, hey, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Right? So, page after page, text after text. Even the last few years of my mother's life, those weekly calls, calling India, always been, it's not a couple of minutes or 5 minutes, but it was always at least an hour long. My wife would laugh at me and say, "What do you guys talk for an hour?" And even over the last few years of my mother's life, those weekly hour-long calls slowly started gravitating from the mundane to discussing topics of Krishna. We would discuss different pastimes of Krishna. We would laugh. We would question each other, and she would ask me, and I would ask her, because she's had her upbringing, based on the knowledge that she gained, over the years and from her parents. So we would discuss. We would have a very healthy discussion. We would not always agree, but we would have healthy discussions. And sometimes she would just stop and say, "Where did you get all these details from?" Not in a doubting mind, but in astonishment as a mother to her son, right? The mother, like, "You're 30 years younger to me. Where did you pick up all of this stuff? Where?" And all of it, I would tell her, is coming from my guru, from my spiritual master, and from the Srimad Bhagavatam, from Srila Prabhupada, who's given us this beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam in a way that I can actually read and understand and comprehend, for the most part, with my dull senses. That's the beauty of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is so accessible and made available in a way and presented in a way that even the dullest of minds, like mine, can make sense out of it. And then there are several topics that are interweaved in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the way the Srimad Bhagavatam is presented. So whether it is the scientist in you, who wants to know more about creation, about planets, and how all of this came to be, or it is the sentimentalist, or it is the spiritualist. Regardless, we're all inspired towards Krishna. We're all inspired towards Krishna. We're just brought towards Krishna. It's like, I remember Sri Radhika Mataji mentioned in one of the interactions where she was saying, It's like being drawn by the strings of our heart. And it's such a lovely expression that stuck in my mind. It's like being drawn by the strings of your heart. We're drawn towards Krishna, and in a loving way, in a nice way, in an inspiring way. So the futility of pursuing these material desires. And when Prahlad Maharaj refers to Charvita Charvananam, right, or chewing the chewed, it basically captures in no uncertain terms that it's useless trying to go after these material desires which are constantly hitting us, go for this, go for this, go for this, go for this, because it is nothing that actually lasts. It is not a lasting pleasure. It may be a pleasure for a fleeting moment. After that, it's gone. You buy a new car, you drive it out of the showroom, you're excited, but after a day or two, a week, a month, it's a car, it's a conveyance. It loses that newness that you felt, that excitement you felt when you first saw it in the showroom, in the dealership. And that's just an example. Everything in life is like that. There's nothing, it's all temporary. It's all very temporary, very transient. So for us specifically as devotees, as practitioners of Krishna consciousness, as readers of the Srimad Bhagavatam, for us it is easier for us to jump off that merry-go-round, right? And be able to see how the merry-go-round is spinning and spinning and spinning, like I was saying, and how people are going crazy. They want to be on that merry-go-round. They think it is fun. They think it is exciting, not realizing that they're getting nowhere. They're only going round and round and round. They're not making any progress. And they're ending up with a complete feeling of nausea, right? But we're able to see that objectively. We can see that merry-go-round. We're seeing people jump on it, and people screaming, laughing, and excited. And we know that they're actually not really enjoying it. It's actually a very fearful situation, if you ask me. Now, we all know George Harrison and the Beatles and their association with Srila Prabhupada, back in the late 60s and 70s. And many of their songs, they were so influenced and inspired by Srila Prabhupada that even though they were playing to a Western audience, they have several songs that somehow infuse certain messages that they picked up through the association or their association with Srila Prabhupada. Many songs. And one such song that, talking about the merry-go-round comes to my mind. I grew up, listening to the Beatles in my younger days and playing in a band and a lot of the Beatles songs. And one of the songs that comes to my mind right now as we're talking about this merry-go-round is, The Fool on the Hill. The Fool on the Hill. That's the name of the song. And in the middle of the song, it goes like this, the refrain goes like, but the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round. Oh, oh, round and round and round and round and round and round. So basically, he's saying the fool on the hill, the Beatles are saying the fool on the hill. The fool on the hill in this case is a person who is not with the regular crowd. He's considered a fool. He's considered an outcast. He's not a part of the herd. He's not a part of the general janta, as we call it, right? He is considered a fool. No one wants to hear him. No one wants to talk to him. He is considered a fool. He's a recluse. But they don't know that the fool that these people are thinking, the general population is thinking, is actually the most intelligent because he can see. He is sitting on the hill, meaning he is above the fray. He's not just a fool on the hill, but he is actually the most sensible person who's sitting on a platform that is not material, that is way above, and he can actually look at this merry-go-round going round and round and round with the eyes in his head. Eyes in his head is not these material eyes, but it's the spiritual knowledge that he has. He's able to see that world spinning round and round and round, and people are in this futile madness, knowing that they're not getting anywhere, but yet they want to indulge in this. Yet they don't want to change their life. Yet they don't want to change their lifestyle to a point that life comes and goes. The sun keeps going down. And with every day the sun goes down, our lifespan is being reduced. That's what the Bhagavatam also tells us. The lifespan is being reduced and reduced and reduced and reduced with every day the sun goes down. And when that happens, we get to the bottom line, the point where we have to give up this life and then we start a new life. And then again, go through the same thing and we give that life up. And then again, it starts all over again. But if we don't learn and if we don't make an attempt to make a change, it is insanity, right? We'll continue to experience the same thing over and over and over again. It's like going on that merry-go-round, round and round and round and round. So that's why this specific verse for me, Adanta Gobir, this verse that's spoken by Prahlad Maharaj to Hiranyakashipu is it's a beautiful verse. And there are so many such beautiful verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it not only awakens us, you know, or awakens the detachment from illusion, but it simultaneously is also directing us towards a positive engagement in devotion to Krishna. It's not just saying that, okay, this merry-go-round is bad, but it is also pointing out that instead of this merry-go-round, jump off of that merry-go-round, but instead, apply yourself in devotion to Krishna. It's drawing us towards Krishna. So where worldly life is nothing but a frustration, the Bhagavatam offers us the nectar of bhakti. Let me repeat that again. Where worldly life is nothing but frustration. It just brings frustration. The Srimad Bhagavatam offers the nectar of bhakti. So it's on the one hand pointing out all the frustrations that one can go through if they're indulging in this materialistic way of life. But on the other hand, it's also giving us the solution. The solution. And it's timeless. Think about it. Parikshit Maharaj was eons ago. And that message that he was getting across to his demoniac father, Hiranyakashipu, is applicable even today. We have the Hiranyakashipu sitting in our own heads. We have all those monsters prowling all over our head every single moment of our lives. It's timeless, whether it is through consumerism or ambition or just Adanta Gobir or even restless desires, the pattern of chewing the chewed, it continues. And like I was saying, today's consumerism is on steroids, right? It's constantly pulling us in different directions all the time, all the time. It's not just like, I did it in the morning, so therefore I'm going to let you be for the rest of the day. No. Maya is pulling us, and she's such a wonderful, she's expert in terms of her service to Krishna. She's, after all, an eternal servant of Krishna. She's the external energy of Krishna. So she's doing a great job. She's doing a great job. There's no question about that. It's we who are falling prey to that, unfortunately. So Clearly, the Srimad Bhagavatam is timeless. The relevance is absolutely timeless. It doesn't matter. And like I said, the Srimad Bhagavatam not only diagnoses the condition but also provides a solution, a real solution. It's not a treatment, it's the cure for this diseased, materialistic way of life that we lead. It helps us cut through illusion and does that by illuminating, the eternal joy of devotion. That's basically what the Bhagavatam is doing. It is cutting all these unnecessary, irrelevant, temporary, illusory activities that fill our lives, our day to day lives, but instead giving us the path. It's giving us this eternal joy. I mean, there is joy in devotional service. So every single text is leading us towards perfecting our lives, building our relationship in pleasing Krishna through devotional service. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is undoubtedly the crusted jewel of all Vedic literature. And it's my humble prayer to us all to continue on this journey and take these invaluable lessons from the Srimad Bhagavatam very, very, very seriously. With that, I'd like to close today's class, and hopefully, we should be able to take some of these lessons that we've discussed today to our heart, from our heads into our hearts, and actually, make a difference, a lasting difference. Thank you so much again for joining us. Have a wonderful, happy, Krishna conscious week ahead. Hare Krishna.